Okay, so I just got off the video chat with Everett and Grace, and it was 5 minutes and 5 seconds. So, once again, my video chat, my relationship with the kids has been intentionally hindered, despite the inordinate amount of psychological damage that's proven to do to children. My relationship with them is being hindered by all means possible by their mother, although I hesitate to use the term mother in this case. Somebody who's actively and willfully abusing their own children doesn't seem like a mom at that point. It seems more like somebody intent on collecting a paycheck, to me, is what it seems like. Since obviously they're not taking care of the well-being of their children. In fact, they're intentionally harming their children. At what point do we stop calling a person who does that a mother and start calling them, I don't know, what do you call somebody who uses their own children to better their financial situation rather than take care of their kids? What do you call that? There's got to be a term for that. I know with the immigrant crisis, we call them anchor babies. When somebody comes over and has their baby here in the U.S. trying to get citizenship for themselves, and generally we frown on that behavior because you're using an infant to attempt to better your own life. That's definitely questionable ethically. What do we call that when an American, a citizen, a naturalized citizen of this country does that? Intentionally abuses their own children to further their own finance. What do you call that? That's, we need a term for that. In this case, we could definitely use the term alienator. That's what's being done here. The children are being alienated from their own father, and from their father's entire side of the family, grandparents, uncles, aunt, cousins, everybody. The entire side of the family, just completely alienated. It's one of the most severe forms of abuse there is, and there's no penalties. None. You call CPS and say, oh, we don't handle that. You know, we handle physical abuse. We handle sexual abuse. But we do not handle the psychological abuse that many psychologists argue is more harmful than physical or sexual abuse. CPS does not handle that. So, once again, your tax dollars being wasted on an agency that does not do the job for which you are paying them your hard-earned money. So, once again, another argument in favor of libertarianism and against big government, because, as usual, big government spending is completely wasteful, ineffective, and doesn't serve the intended purpose for which you are being robbed. And make no mistake, taxation is theft. You are being robbed. I have now filed more paperwork at the courthouse. I've also met with a psychologist in order to get a psych eval. In fact, that's why I'm out in Capole getting paperwork, so that I can get the paperwork to give to the psychologist, so that I can get the psych eval, so that we can get a different ruling from the judge. Again, I'm just going through the motions. I am not optimistic. At this point, the kids and I have been so abused by the system, I have virtually no faith that anything will change or improve. I'm making the effort, but so far that effort for 2 years now has been completely fruitless, and my children are continuing to be abused by their own mother. Again, really hesitant to use that term at this point, and their stepdad, who is also complicit in the extreme abuse of my 2 innocent children. So Everett told me today in the video chat, he says, it's your job to make us happy, not our job to make you happy. And by happy, I was merely trying to prolong the video chat for his benefit, for his mental health. But probably also for mine, if I'm being honest. But I've already kind of weathered most of this storm, and I can handle it. it's definitely going to be more beneficial for the kids to have a relationship with their dad moving forward. The literature is very clear about how negatively kids who don't have a relationship with one of their biological parents is. And it's really negative regardless of circumstance. When a parent dies, the literature is very negative about what happens to that kid once their parent dies and they no longer get to have a relationship with their parent. If the parent abandons them and is like, a deadbeat dad or a deadbeat mom, those certainly exist. That's also very negative for the kid. If the kid is alienated specifically from their parent by an alienator, that's arguably the worst scenario, because in this case, they still have access to one of their parents, that parent being a serial child abuser and most likely suffering from multiple different personality disorders. Not multiple personality disorder, but multiple different personality disorders. Most often, narcissism, sociopathy, borderline personality disorder, used to be called bipolar disorder, or in many cases of extreme parental alienation, as my children are suffering. Generally, the alienating parent at that point is suffering from 2 or more of those conditions. I'm not a licensed psychologist, but I've definitely been doing the research on this, and I can tell you what I think those 2 different personality disorders that the alienating parent is suffering from. However, I, instead of speculating or making my own commendations on that or comments, I'm just going to provide the literature to the judge and hope that the judge actually reads the literature. That's the real problem with most of these family custody cases. The judges are generally uneducated and ignorant about what's actually going on. They're generally making decisions off the cuff with little or no information. They're just going on the appearance of the 2 parties in the courthouse, and they're not doing any deeper research on the history of those individuals, or anything like that. My case is a perfect example. I have 0 criminal record of any kind, other than minor traffic infractions. And the opposing party, we'll say, has multiple DUIs, multiple other records and run-ins with law enforcement, including hyper-aggressive verbal abuse of law enforcement agents on record. I mean, stuff that would make Mel Gibson blush. And yet they have prevailed in every trial because the judge refuses, in most cases so far. Again, I'm going back to court again and again, optimistic that at some point I will get a judge who will do a modicum of research. Again, not getting my hopes up, not trying to even pretend like I'm going to get lucky like that, but it's a possibility. And so I'm going to keep fighting for Everett and Grace until that eventuality occurs. I'm just documenting this for the record. I'm documenting this also for Everett and Grace when they get older, so they can remember what they said to me during the video chat and put it in context of the extreme abuse that they're suffering at the hands of their own mother, which is so unbelievably cruel and unfair to both of them. And Everett and Grace, I am so sorry. Again, I'm at the courthouse today. I'm out here fighting every single day. I spent $300 with a psychologist today, trying to, again, jump through the hoops to get to see my own 2 kids. And again, I have 0 criminal record of any kind, 0 history of any kind of violence, anything like that. And I'm still, now I'm over $300,000 down in trying to get reasonable visitation and custody of the kids. And I'm still out here fighting for you guys, and you're your dad has loved you the whole time and has done nothing wrong to anybody. And unfortunately, we live in a system and under a government that doesn't care about the well-being of children. Specifically, doesn't care about the well-being of U.S. citizen children, which I find really interesting. I mean, the news media is talking about the migrant children being kept, in housing on the border, away from their parents, and the news media will be quick to show a child who's drowned on the Rio Grande, trying to immigrate illegally into the country, but they will not discuss the children being abused at the hand of their own parents, and the parents who are being abused by the parent as well. The media will not touch that, will not talk about it. And in fact, if the media does talk about it, will label the victims with abusive language. They'll call you a deadbeat dad. Some people have the nerve to call me a deadbeat dad. I've moved 3 states now to try and see my kids. I've gone to court again and again and again. I've paid all the supervisors. I've paid all the psychologists. I've paid all the lawyers. I've paid all of those fees and all of those costs. And then people want to call me a deadbeat dad. I could not have put more effort into the well-being of my kids. There was no possibility that I could have put more effort in for my 2 kids than I put in. I have a clear conscience. Whatever else may be wrong with me, or whatever else I may have done wrong in the past, on this, my conscience is 100% clear. I have done everything I could for my 2 kids this entire time. And this is the record of it. This is the record of me documenting my continued struggle just to be in my children's lives for more than a 5-minute video chat, wherein they say something disrespectful and rude to me that they are parroting the abusive parent in so saying. And I'm just documenting it. So, Everett and Grace, I love you very much. When I prevail, which I will prevail, inevitably, inexorably, persistently, consistently, I do not give up, ever. The R in RY stands for relentless, and I am relentless, and I will never stop fighting for you two. And I'm still out here fighting every day, and I'm going to continue fighting every day. And when I prevail, I want you guys to have access to all of this history and to be able to put into context the abuse you were suffering at the hands of your child abusing parent and child abusing step parent, so that you will know exactly what has occurred. Whatever age that may be at, whether that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, this is your record that your dad loved you and tried everything he could every step of the way, every day, and was just chewed up and spit out by a system that doesn't care about kids, doesn't care about parents, doesn't care about the well-being of society at all, obviously. It's a for-profit system driven to encourage child abuse. That's what child support and the family court system currently is. They literally encourage child support with financial tools such as child support, which is an interesting thing. I mean, I look at child support basically as if a good analogy, in my opinion, would be consider a more serious crime, like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer who murdered his victims. Imagine going to Jeffrey Dahmer's victims' families and saying, you have to pay for Jeffrey Dahmer's stint in prison, or you have to pay for Jeffrey Dahmer's rent or internet or laundry or car payment or insurance or anything. Just imagine going to Jeffrey Dahmer murdered a bunch of people. Imagine going to one of the mothers of his victims and saying, yeah, we understand that he abused you and your child in such a manner, but now we need you to go ahead and pay him every month. That's what child support is. It's the same thing. You're financially incentivizing the abuse of children. That's what child support does. And people can argue and say, oh no, that's not the case, whatever. And I know there's different scenarios where there are parents who just abandon their kids and don't care about their kids. And I understand why people feel that they should be forced to pay child support in those situations. But in my situation, in my kid's situation, that is not the case. Child support in this situation is financially incentivizing specifically the abuse of 2 innocent children. And it's being carried out by 2 guilty parties here. Mr. Garcia, you are guilty of child abuse. You've been abusing my 2 kids now for more than a year. And don't think I'm going to forget that.